Good morning, everyone. It is so great to be with you all this morning, gathered for this presentation, Life Begins Where Fear Ends. My name is Joshua Maxey, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the Executive Director of Mishpachah. For those of us who are joining online or here in person, you can find more information about Beit Mishpachah by visiting our website, www.beitmish.org. There you can find any upcoming programs, as well as our schedule for our weekly Shabbat services. This morning, as our community celebrates Israel's 75th anniversary, we are also happy to have our guest speaker, Michael Alroy. Michael is an Israeli trans activist who will share with us today his journey in growing up in a religious family, serving in the IDF, and his general experience as a transgendered man in Israeli society. Michael will deliver a message on how he overcame fear to become the person that he is today. So Michael, welcome. Please join us.
Cool. Nice to see you guys. Hope you're having this weekend. Nice weekend so far in Israel. Sunday is the working day, so yeah. I don't know if can you guys hear me, or you prefer that I speak? Oh, okay, right. For the people online, right? I'm used to speaking without a microphone. Cool. So I want to ask you guys a few questions, okay? And try to play along, try to answer the questions. There's no wrong or right. There's no yes or no, just whatever you feel. Is that okay? Okay, you're gonna answer my questions. You're gonna break your promise in 3 seconds. Okay. What is a man? No, I mean, there's no wrong or right, but yeah, what is a man to you? Whatever you feel. Don't be PC, don't think too much. What is a man? Who wants to just raise your hand, because I'll have to give you the microphone to answer that.
I would say, for me, it's the person who supplies the sperm.
For you, it's the person who supplies the sperm. Okay. What else? I don't know, whatever you feel. Yeah.
On one hand, it's a societal construction.
Okay. And on the other hand?
On the other hand, being a cis male, I mean, I generate sperm. So by Deb's definition, I'm a biological man.
Okay. So, but I'm asking you, what is a man? And not what is a male, but okay. Again, what is it to you? Like you're walking in the street or whatever you feel about that. Yeah.
So if I'm walking down the street, probably somebody who looks like a man.
And
What does the man look like? Yeah.
What is that to you?
I mean, I think there's certain characteristics that we associate with that. You have a beard, you look like a man.
True. Okay. Cool. Thanks. Anyone else want to try? I promise you, it's not a test. You're not going to fail. It's okay. Then in that case, what is a woman? Provides eggs. But besides that, okay, provides the sperm, provide the egg. What else to you?
Based on pre-recorded characteristics as a children, we learn that this is a man, this is a woman. So for me, a woman looks like the woman that I was taught to associate as a woman.
Okay.
Differently than a man.
Which is what?
Breast,
Okay.
hips.
Okay.
Other than that, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So then, what is a transgender person? A trans person.
Everything we just talked about.
What is that? Yeah. Josh, I'm making you run around the damn Sunday one. Yeah.
I would say it's somebody who was identified as one gender when they were born or when they were young, but feels like or ends up living as the other.
Okay. Okay, thanks. All right. Okay, so I'm not gonna drive you guys crazy anymore. I'm not in favor of definitions, but if we have already got into it, then let's clarify some concepts. Josh, is there any way to maybe make it softer or something? Or yeah, okay. So male and female are biological concepts, okay, how we are when we are born, and physically, and amongst other things, what we have between our legs. And man and woman are cultural and social concepts, okay, our gender, what we are, how, you know, basically how we define ourselves. As man, woman, it's a whole spectrum. Okay, so we have male, female, and man and woman, and these are two different things, okay? I'm not making this up, you can Google it, you can read about it, and the reason I'm saying this is, for example, I was born female, okay, but I always felt an incompatibility between my body and, if you would like to call it, my soul or my sense of self. All right. So, by the way, trans is a Latin term for on the other side of, someone, as I said, who feels an incompatibility between their body and their sense of self. So when I was, small, I had no idea what the word transgender meant. I had no idea what it was, and no one volunteered me information like I'm doing before you guys right now. As a matter of fact, I began to figure it out, way back then. It all began at the age of 4. My 4th birthday, my brother and I are celebrating our birthdays, even though there's an age gap of 4 years and 2 weeks between us. My mom decided to save herself a party and celebrate our birthdays together. Anyway, we got up in the morning and ran to open our presents. We reached the living room and there stood 2 boxes, one blue and one pink. My brother ran towards the blue box to open the wrapping. What do you think he found inside? Close to a truck. Close to a truck, like a vehicle. Okay, a tractor. No, because usually I say close to a truck and people say Power Rangers. And got nothing to do with the truck. Okay, so you're gonna turn this off or not? No, it's on, it's off. Ready to keep it?
It's probably from the speaker that's above you.
All right.
Ceiling.
Josh should still be holding this? Okay. Yeah, it was a bit there. All right, so basically, yeah, he got a tractor, and at that same moment, I felt strong feelings of jealousy. And then I opened my pink box, and guess what I found inside? A doll. A doll, exactly, a Barbie doll. So while I wallowed in disappointment, my brother grabbed the Barbie out of my hand and pulled off her. Right, that's the reaction. So basically, you might expect a kid at that age to scream, shout, cry, but no, we just sat there and I burst into laughter, and I felt that my brother kind of understood me. So, by the way, I'll just kind of give you a bit of a background about myself. Thanks. So my name is Michael. My friends call me Mikey. 33 years ago, I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. My parents actually named me Michelle. I have 2 older siblings, Natalie and Ariel. And when I was about 1 year old, my parents divorced, hopefully not because of me, but you never know. And as I mentioned, again, this basically all happened way back then. So, when I was 4 years old, so I'd go to kindergarten, for example, and I would dress as what was defined back then as a boy. When I would go, well, Josh, is there any way to make it softer in any? Sorry, I have terrible ADHD and it's the noise driving. Okay, so basically I would dress as a boy. I would play, I'd pretend that I was a fireman, a truck driver, a doctor. Sometimes, in kindergarten, you have the Shabbat mother, Shabbat father. I don't know if you ever had that, but that's basically what we had in kindergarten. So I always longed to be the Shabbat father, but they didn't even give me the role of Shabbat mother. I guess I didn't suit either role. And sometimes I would arrive home, hide under the bed and cut my hair. I had long straight hair that reached the center of my back. So I'd chop off all my hair, leave all the hair pieces under the bed so that no one would discover what I had done. I had no idea what I was thinking to myself. And one day I'm at kindergarten playing with the boys when all of a sudden the kindergarten bully walked up to me, pointed at me and said, "Michelle, you will never be one of the boys." And that hit me. Suddenly, I realized I was told that I did not belong to the boys group, but on the other hand, I didn't feel like I belonged to the girls group. So where do I belong? And this question would trouble me for a very long time. Age 6, Shabbat, Saturday morning, I'm at the synagogue with my uncle and cousins. when all of a sudden one of my cousins put his prayer shawl on me and his yarmulke, and you won't believe how I felt at that moment. I felt that they're finally giving me a chance to be who I truly felt that I was. But this blissful thought was interrupted when my uncle shouted at him, "Take that off her immediately." And this was the first time that I felt true humiliation. Over the years, the situation became very dangerous in South Africa. A house was broken into, a car was stolen, my mom was held at gunpoint. So at some point, my mom just decided that we would make aliyah, that we would move to Israel. We already had a house as part of my grandmother's inheritance in a big city. We basically moved to a small town called Hadera. And when we moved there, my mom enrolled me in a national religious school. She herself wasn't religious, but my father was, and it was important for him. Till this day, I still keep tradition. I keep Shabbat and kosher, but I can tell you more about that later. And in this, religious elementary school, boys and girls were studying together in the same classroom. And on the face of it, everything was good and pleasant. But that's the problem. It wasn't. The boys had to wear a t-shirt, pants, and a yarmulke. And the girls had to wear a t-shirt and a skirt. School uniform, right? They decided for me, and I'm sure it wasn't their intention to do any harm, but this was forced on me without knowing. Who decided that girls have to wear a skirt, that girls are pink, that girls are Barbie dolls, that girls are makeup? Who decided that boys are blue, that boys are tractors, that boys are football? Who? I'm a boy in elementary school walking around in a skirt. But this didn't prevent the kids there from laughing at me and calling me a tomboy. I guess somehow I was acting like a boy. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. And I was offended by their comments, about them calling me a tomboy. But what like elementary school was finally over, and my dad enrolled me in an all-girls religious school. What fun. If I thought that until this point it was bad, I knew that now it would be even worse. The sleeves became longer, the skirts, also became longer. And we even had to wear skirts even after school hours, because if a teacher caught a girl without a skirt, not naked, God forbid, she'd probably be expelled. So, for example, I'd walk in the shopping mall, always like on the lookout for teachers in case they'd catch me without a skirt, even though this entire time I was actually wearing a skirt, like just so you understand the pressure and the lack of confidence I had back then. My parents, despite their divorce, kept in reasonable contact over the years. And one evening we went out to eat at a restaurant, and my dad, that was a very strong believer, he's very, very religious and very strong believer, began to tell us all kinds of things that rabbis can do with the Kabbalah, the Torah Kabbalah. You know what Kabbalah is, I assume, right? Does someone want to explain what that is in one sentence? Mysticism, right? In one word, good. So exactly, it's basically the mysticism part of the Torah, and a lot of goes into that. But my dad told me all kinds of things that rabbis, could do with this Kabbalah. So I asked him, let's say I want to turn into an animal. Could they turn me into an animal? And he said, yes. I said, wait. Okay, so let's say I want to turn into a wolf. Could they turn me into a wolf? I said, yes. And if I want to turn into a boy, could they turn me into a boy? My parents both looked at me and said, what do you mean? As if wanting to be a wolf didn't sound strange enough. What do you mean you want to be a boy? And I don't remember what I said to my parents, but let's just say they didn't take me that seriously. And those were the conversations with them. It was never that serious around this topic. It's funny, but the first time I heard the term transgender was actually from my mom. After the conversation in the restaurant, she printed out a 30-page document with a heading that said something like 15 symptoms of being transgender. And if you have at least 5 symptoms, you're probably a trans person. So we sat one Saturday afternoon, we went over, paragraph after paragraph, page after page, and I didn't answer yes to 5 symptoms. I answered yes to all 15 symptoms. And I don't remember what happened after that, but I do remember my mom telling me, don't you dare do something about this. No one will accept you this way. Yeah.
Why did your mother print that out?
Well, why did she print it? Why did she look for it? Probably because we were talking at the restaurant and she kind of figured, I think, she kind of figured something was going on. So she wanted to kind of see, is this it? Or usually, if today we don't print out things. So that's if you ask me what it is. Yeah. No, I know what you meant.
Parents know they don't want to.
Yeah, so basically she printed that out to kind of figure out, like, to self-diagnose or whatever. But I was around 14, 15 years old. So the moment I discovered that there was a name for what I was, I decided to investigate online. And I came across all these YouTube videos about people transitioning. and also came across a movie called Boys Don't Cry. Are you familiar with that movie? I like how everyone is like, yes, yes, because I usually do these talks in front of students and they're like, most of them are like, no, because like it's an old movie, unfortunately, but I tell them to watch it. It's a tough movie. And basically in the movie, you see a trans person just living the way, that they want to live their life. And I even convinced my mom to watch the movie with me. So we sat and watched. And throughout the entire movie, my eyes were glued to the screen because I finally saw someone that I could relate to, right? Like someone like me. But from time to time, I kind of looked in my mom's direction to see how she's reacting. And then I realized that she's giving me these strange looks as if she was trying to say, don't you dare do something like this. The movie ended in tragedy with the rape and murder of this young trans person. This, of course, is a true story, something that happened here in the States in 1993. And that made me feel really bad. And if that wasn't enough, my mom added oil to the fire and said that that's probably the fate of people that do things like that. And that made me feel really bad. Because my mom was kind of helpless, right? She's my mom and she didn't know how to deal with this. And she would just tell herself stories and blame the whole world. So for example, when I was little, she said, nonsense, she's a tomboy, she'll grow out of this. She'll stop wearing these clothes. When I grew older, when I reached 14, she said, nonsense, she's just at an adolescent period of life, she'll grow out of this. When I grew older, I don't remember what she said because she ran out of excuses, but she went to seek help because she didn't know how to deal with this. And the psychologists at the time, it seemed, didn't know how to deal with this phenomenon, or they didn't have much information. This was like 18 years ago. 3 psychologists, the first one said that maybe this had to do something with my parents' divorce. Yet another argued that maybe this had to do with us moving to Israel. And then another one said that maybe I experienced some kind of sexual abuse, each one in their own theory. And my mom was just overwhelmed with theories and explanations. She didn't know how to deal with this. At a later stage in high school, I had a girlfriend. I'll tell you more about her in a second. But back then we would do all kinds of naughty things. And one day, just for the fun of it, we thought that we would make a mock wedding at the school, at the all-girls school. So we handed out invitations. Everyone had a good laugh. The students, the teachers, the principal. He didn't laugh. After all, this was an all-girls religious school. So he invited, bless you, invited my parents for a talk. And my mom that arrived at the meeting thought that maybe she'll get answers from him. What is wrong with my daughter? So she sat there in the meeting and she looked at the principal and she said to him, Rabbi Danny, have you never ever come across a lesbian at your school? He looked at her and he said, no. Now I'm talking to you about a school of 400 girls and this guy said he never came across one lesbian. And trust me, there were loads of lesbians at the school. It's basically winning the lottery for lesbians because you have no distractions. It's just girls there. So my mom realized that she's not going to get answers from this guy, but she was sure of one thing, that one day a knight in shining armor would come along on a white horse, touch a little girl's heart, and she would stop with all this nonsense and revert to be a girl like all other girls. My dad, like my mom, also didn't know how to deal with this. He didn't, he was a bit confused because he was always thinking, you were born in one body, why the hell would you want to be in a different body? And sometimes he had conversations with my uncle that happens to be gay and a bit more open-minded. And one day I asked him like, what does dad think about me wanting to be a boy? And he told me that my dad doesn't really, understand it. And maybe you're just confused. Maybe something happened to you and maybe you should just take this, maybe you should just slow down. I remember at that stage, I thought of moving to a secular school, a place where there are more options, a place where you have boys and girls, a place where I could dress the way that I wanted to dress, and an open world, basically. But then all kinds of fears started to arise. And my dad, of course, didn't agree for this to happen. But if I really wanted this to happen, then it would probably happen. But there was one fear greater than all other fears. I knew that in a secular school, you have boys and girls. So I know what I felt on the inside, so I'd probably hang around with the boys. But visually, I still look like a girl. So maybe they won't accept it there. So I just kind of gave up on that idea. And I remember coming home one day from the all-girls school. I went up to my room. I closed the door behind me. And I began to pray to God to make me what I truly felt that I was. And I said to myself, I'll climb into bed, pray with all my heart, and maybe, just maybe, my prayers would be answered and I would wake up in a different body. And I so believed that this would happen that I took this, kind of booklet and I, said something like how to lay tefillin, which was a prayer book. I put it under my pillow. And just so you understand, like I said, that in the event that I would wake up in a different body, I would become more religious. I would keep all the 613 mitzvot. I would pray every day, all day, whatever needs to be done, I'll do it. So as I said, I took this prayer book, I put it under my cushion and I went to sleep with it the whole night. The morning came, and believe it or not, stayed exactly the same. I understood that another shitty day had begun in the same life, in the same body, and time would run its course and not for one moment considered what I wanted or needed. And then natural forces began to kick in. Adolescence, this didn't happen in one morning when I woke up, got out of bed, stood in front of the mirror, and boom. This happened in phases and stages that were painful both emotionally and physically. First, my chest started to grow, and then what I called the monthly curse came along. And I just felt that I was kind of trapped in this body that was shifting and changing, and there's nothing I could do about it. And at some point, when I looked in the mirror, I realized that I have a very feminine body, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm a girl. What can I do about this? So I went to my mom. I told her, listen, I want to cut my hair. I didn't really tell her the real reason why I wanted to do that, but I said that I wanted to shave my head because of the long hair. It was itching or something like that. But my mom, like my mom, she said that on no account that she would agree for this to happen. And that if I did such a thing, then I should go find somewhere else to sleep. Because to my mom, as long as this was just talk, she had no problem. But the moment this translated into something real, she drew a line. She said, no way, this is not going to happen. So I gave up on that too. And days go by and it's not great for me. I don't want to, basically, I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. I don't like it when people look at me. I'm only preoccupied by the thought of wanting to be a boy. And it's not that I just, didn't want to live that way anymore. Like I couldn't. I was like very, very depressed about this whole situation. And at some point I was receiving treatment from a psychiatrist in my hometown that gave me antidepressants, but these antidepressants made me even more depressed with all kinds of side effects like trembling hands, loss of appetite. I couldn't sleep. And at some point I decided that I'd just put an end to this all. April 2005, Passover evening, I'm sitting around the table with my family. Everyone's having a good time, enjoying the meal. And no one realizes that to me, this is the last night that I would continue with my suffering. So after the meal, after everyone left the table, I went up to my room. I locked the door behind me. I took a pack of sleeping pills. I swallowed them all. I climbed into bed, closed my eyes, and I was at peace with my decision. And that was that. The next day around 1:30 p.m., I awoke. Yeah. Yeah, you're like, what? Yeah. So yeah, I awoke, opened my eyes, and honestly, the room was spinning around me and I had a massive headache and my body was partially paralyzed, probably because of the pills. But I remember from the moment that I opened my eyes, I thought, what am I still doing here? Like I understood it was unsuccessful and what am I still doing on planet Earth? And I wasn't capable of getting out of bed only, I think around 8 p.m. or something like that. I managed to crawl to the shower. I had a shower. I didn't tell anyone what I had done. Only about 3 weeks later, I told my psychiatrist, who invited my parents over for a talk and told them that she recommends to admit me. So my parents, came to the talk and they were like, what's going on? It's because of these pills that you've been giving her. What's wrong with you? We're not going to send our daughter to such a place. What's happening? And I told my parents that I literally tried everything and I just wanted to get help and that I have nothing to lose. And in the end, they basically were convinced, and I was admitted at the psychiatric hospital near Tel Aviv. There I was treated with medication. Don't imagine me in a straitjacket or sealed room. It's not like in the movies. Of course, there are places like that. But it was only a day center when I would arrive awake and refreshed. And then they gave us a pill that made everyone collapse. You feel like you're in a state of slow motion. And then they would drive us crazy with these, occupational therapy and all these kind of lessons that we had. But this pill was stronger than any type of exhaustion you could imagine. You feel so heavy, you can't get up from the chair and you drool from the mouth. And at some point, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. So anyway, they let me go at some point. And my dad came to pick me up and he took me to his house, not before we stopped at the rabbi to get a blessing, of course. And that's how I found myself back at the same all-girls school. And I can tell you that that place to me felt like hell. So suddenly life itself felt like the lesser of the two evils. And I want to say that, I don't think that hospitals are a bad thing or that treatment is a bad thing or whatever medication. I just felt that maybe back then they didn't adjust the treatment, or I don't know what they were giving me, but I think it was the wrong treatment to help me with my depression and everything. So basically I went back to that same school. Age 16, I look like Eminem with a hoodie, a beanie, and a skirt. It might sound a bit funny, a bit strange, right? You can imagine him with this girl. But actually in the school that I was studying, it aroused curiosity, not to everyone, but to someone very in particular. She was a few grades above me. I, in fact, had a crush on her sister. And sometimes I would go over to their house and, she would tell me that she told me that the first time she heard the name Michelle, she imagined a girl with a ponytail, but when she saw me, she saw something completely different than what she had imagined. And she simply fell in love with me. That's what she told me. I remember her coming over one evening to my house and we sat on the grass, facing each other, and she kissed me. What do you guys think that means about her? Whatever you think, there's no wrong or right. She was just attracted to me. Okay. Anything else? Or she was a lesbian? Okay. She didn't fit into any model that she was supposed to be either. Okay. Okay, great, thanks. So usually these are the answers that come up. And usually in Israel, when I ask that, then everyone's like, oh, she's a lesbian. Because, 1 + 1 is 2. She was struggling with her own sexuality. That could be. Thanks. Yeah, that might have been it. So basically, again, she managed to see beyond that weird whatever I was wearing back then. But I'll say this: there's no direct connection or direct correlation between gender identity and sexual orientation or sexual attraction. So gender identity, what am I? Am I a man, woman? It's all spectrum, it's fluid, but I won't get into that now. And sexual orientation, to whom am I attracted to, right? Am I attracted to men, to women, to both, to none? That's also fluid, but these are two different things. Like the fact that I feel that I am a man doesn't necessarily mean now that I'm attracted to women. Sometimes people think that, but I'm just saying that in that sense because she didn't see me as a woman or anything like that. We just fell in love, and I loved in her everything I didn't love in myself. I loved her face, I loved her smile, I loved her eyes, I loved her body, I loved her hair. And at that point, I didn't care about my mom's threats. I was going to cut my own hair. So I went over to a friend one day after school with a shaving machine. I said to her, listen, you're about to give me a haircut. She looked at me, she said, okay. Where we both have no clue how this works and what we're supposed to do. I'm just reminding you, I had like long straight hair that reached the center of my back, and she took the machine on 0 and she started to fire away. So she shaved a bit more and a bit more. And I couldn't wait. I wanted to see what this looked like. So at some point, when one side was completely shaved off, the other side was still there, two things happened. The first thing that happened was I looked in the mirror and I managed to see me. I managed to see Michael, the person I was waiting to see my entire life. And the second thing that happened was the shaving machine stopped working. So I thought, one side is completely shaved off, the other side is still long and flowing. What do you do in that case? Get scissors? Yeah. Leave it as is, flip your hair and get your video back on. Anyone else? Think very simple. Think very. What? Okay. This was like a Friday afternoon. I think everything was closed then. It was bad time, bad day to do a haircut in case something happens. Okay, so yeah, usually people say Commodova, rocket, or whatever, but you won't believe it. All you have to do is either charge the machine or change the batteries. So, so that's what we did. We finished the haircut, and when my mom came home, she gave me these, nasty looks, and she started to say all kinds of nasty things like, "What are you, crazy? What are you, stupid? You look like you have cancer," things like that, that were very painful. I assume my mom didn't mean to be mean and hurt me, but she was in some kind of emotional state. But basically, yeah, I can't deny it was painful to hear my mom say those things about me. So then a turnaround, mostly people that I didn't know, store salespeople, waiters began to speak to me as a guy, in male pronouns, like I was waiting for people to talk to me. But on the one hand, it was great because I felt that, like finally they're talking to me the way that I want them to talk to me. But on the other hand, I still have to correct them and tell them that I'm a girl. Why? Because I'm still studying in the all-girls school. I'm still wearing a skirt, which, on one hand, today we could think, okay, like if they talk to me as a guy, then they get that it's okay for a guy to wear a skirt. But no, this was back then. And anyway, it became inner confusion, frustration, and I had kind of dysphoria. And then, it actually, for example, when I went with my family to a restaurant, and the waiter would come by and say, "What would you like to order, sir?" And my brother and sister would laugh because, they understood that I was confusing people. But actually with my girlfriend from high school, it did good because we could sometimes walk around, back then, right? Like a normal couple or whatever. But it wasn't always great. For example, once we went to the movies, and when we arrived there, I went into the restroom, and I went to the ladies. And when I walked out of the cubicle, there were a bunch of girls standing by the sink. They all looked at me in shock, and they saw a guy with short hair and a skirt. And they just started to scream, "Oh my God, there's a boy." And they like ran out. It was very, very embarrassing. Also for me and also for my girlfriend. In general, she always made me feel good about myself. But after 2.5 years of being in a relationship, I told her, "Listen, we were 16, 17. Like I told her, it's not going to work out. Like, your parents, every time I went over to the house, their parents were like, they didn't like me just based on my appearance. And anyway, I told her, listen, I want us to stay friends, but not, like not in a romantic relationship. So we broke up, days go by and she's not speaking to me. I try to call her, but she's not answering the phone. And for about a month, I would cry from the morning to the morning after. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. I don't know if you guys got your hearts broken like that, but it was very, very traumatizing, very, very, it was painful, and I was very sad. Also because of her, but also because I felt that that haircut that I did wasn't enough, right? Like it didn't really make me feel whole with myself or complete. And I'll just kind of explain to you the timeline. So basically, I'm 17 years old, studying in an all-girls religious school, where my days are filled with lessons about family life education. Do you know what that is in a religious school? You want to say what that is? To see, I always like to check, yeah. That meant was that in an all-girls religious school was how to be a good wife. For example, when your husband comes home, you have to stand by the door. When he walks through the door, you have to scrub his feet. So, it's not something I think that happens today, I hope not. But when I heard this, and when everyone heard this in the classroom, like the chairs were flying in the air, they're like very pissed about it. They didn't want to. And I was also thinking, wait, like, is this my role as a female? Like I'm supposed to scrub some dude's feet? Like what's happening? And then anyway, sports lessons, for example, it felt very uncomfortable for me to run around in a skirt. Do you know those that show the Teletubbies? Familiar with it? Yeah, those purple doll things. So imagine yourself running around in a Teletubbies costume for 12 years. Like that's what I felt that I was running around in all the time in a skirt. So close to my senior year, I just decided that, I'm not going to wear a skirt anymore. If they want, they can expel me off campus, right? But I'm not going to wear a skirt anymore. So that's what I decided to do. And don't get me wrong, I have a strong relationship with God, but I asked 1,000 times why. Why is this happening to me? Why was I born this way? And at some point, I realized that I was not going to get direct answers, the way that I was expecting to. And maybe this is what I was thinking back then. Maybe this is my curse. Maybe it's my personal journey. And I somehow just have to kind of embrace it so that, maybe, I don't know, I'll figure it out one day as to why I am like this. So by the way, there are no accurate statistics. There are no accurate statistics about how many trans people there are in Israel or in the world. Even if you'll hear certain numbers or percentages, you can't really know that. Why? Because you could spot someone on the street, but you won't know if that person's trans or not, or anything else. So at the time when I was studying in this all-girls school, I thought that I was the only one who felt this way. And then I realized that there was someone just like me who felt the same way. And I thought that, I'd be able to talk to this person about it, but to try to explain to someone what it's like to be trans is like explain to someone what it's like to walk on the moon. Unless you feel this way, unless this is who you are and what you are, it's almost impossible to explain. So we didn't talk about it too much. But he told me that there's a support group at the LGBTQ Center in Tel Aviv, and that I should give a call to the moderator. Her name was Nora. So I called Nora, and she told me, yes, this is a support group for trans people. You're welcome to join. It takes place every Tuesday at 7 p.m. So on Tuesday, I decided, yalla, I'm going to this group and I want to see what it's all about. So I wore a t-shirt, pants, shoes, a cap, a sword, a cloak. I'm just joking. And I went, I took a bus to Tel Aviv. And on the way, this is back then, right? This is like 17 years old. I was thinking all kinds of things. I thought, what is this group? Is this group a group of crazy people? Is this group people that were thrown out of their homes? Maybe I won't be accepted to this group. Like that's what was going on in my mind back then. So I arrived at the LGBTQ center and I saw 10 people sitting in a circle in the room, and Nora was speaking to one of the people there as if this person was a woman. And I look at this person, and this person is dressed in men's clothing, has a beard, has a masculine voice, but Nora is speaking to him in female pronouns. And what was going through my mind was, what is she crazy? Like, this is a man. Why is she talking to him as if this is a woman? I introduced myself and, I kept on going to this group every Tuesday at 7 p.m. And at some point, which by the way, this was the only place that I saw people like me. Yeah. So I think, I introduced myself as Michelle. It's a good question. That's what if I remember correctly. And even Nora, she spoke to me in male pronouns, and it felt a bit weird to me in the beginning because no one actually, spoke to me like that consistently in male pronouns. But yeah, I think it was as Michelle. But anyway, I kept on going to this group, and this was the only place where I saw people like me. And at some point I realized that I'm crazy, not she, that I'm supposed to ask the people to speak to me the way that I feel like on the inside. So maybe that person that I saw in the first meeting was on the outside, looked to me like a man, but on the inside felt something completely different. And maybe that person couldn't express themselves on the outside like they felt on the inside, or maybe they just didn't want to. Okay, so it's basically don't judge a book by its cover. That's what it is. And I'll tell you, I went to that group for about 4 years, and if not for that group, I probably wouldn't be standing right now speaking to you guys. So at that time, my mom also began to, accept me more and accept the situation. She even helped me order a binder. A binder is a kind of elastic vest that flattens the chest and gives a more masculine look. Basically, she also went to a support group for parents that have trans kids. She understood that if you can't beat them, join them. I mean, that's the situation. And I also went through a phase of like, self-acceptance and like trying to figure out that this is who I am and this is what I am, and it's fine. A few months before I graduated, before I finished high school, we had to decide what's going to happen after high school. In Israel, it's mandatory. Either you go to the army or either you do national service. Usually religious girls go to national service, or they just don't do any kind of service. So I thought to myself, that's the only privilege of studying in an all-girls school, right? So I could finally, get an exemption of serving, and I can start this transition that I was waiting for my whole life. So that's what I decided to do. I said, okay, I'll get an exemption for religious reasons. And after a few months, I thought to myself, okay, wait. Like I've been living like this for 18 years. What another 2 years of my life? Because honestly, I did want to contribute. I did want to serve. But to be very honest, I just wanted to be like everyone else. Usually in Israel, if you don't do like one of, national service of the army, people would like raise an eyebrow and think like, if something's wrong with you. So I just wanted to be like everyone else. And I decided that I would go to the army. And a few months before my recruitment day, my dad called me and told me that he was very ill, that he had cancer and that he had to go through an operation. And to be very honest, I wasn't worried about my dad because to me, my dad was like Superman. He never gave up on anything in life. When he was young, he wanted to study law at the Hebrew University, but he wasn't accepted. So instead, he worked as a security guard at the law faculty building there. And every morning he would watch how students would walk in and fulfill his dream. But as I said, he didn't give up. And 30 years later, he studied law and he got his lawyer's license at the age of 50. And I thought to myself, if that didn't break him, then an illness will defeat him. The morning of my recruitment arrived. They took all of us, all the females to be soldiers, the girls, they took all of us to the Bakum. The Bakum is a place where you're placed into jobs and get your uniform. So we arrived there and all the girls kind of walked off the bus and lined up. And I walked off last and I was walking to the line when all of a sudden an officer kind of like grabbed me by the hand and said to me, dude, what are you doing? This is the women's line. You're supposed to be in the men's line. What's going on? He probably was confused because of the short hair. And I told him, listen, unfortunately, I enlisted as a female soldier, so I have to go to that line. And then I, was praying that maybe I'd get the uniform that I wanted to get, the men's uniform. But no, I got the women's uniform, a button shirt with one pocket, these very tight pants, and these very ugly ass shoes. You can Google it if you want. They called Golda shoes on Golda Meir, basically. Yeah, I don't know, because that was a style or something, but it was very ugly. So anyway, that's how I started my training. And right from the beginning of my training, there were all kinds of soldiers that saw me with short hair. They kind of stereotyped me and put me in a box, and they would make fun of me. So they'd say, oh, what are you, a lesbian? And I'd say, no, I'm transgender. And they'd say, oh, what is that, a lesbian? Yeah, so I'd explain to them the difference, even though I knew that they were just like laughing at me and stuff. By the way, I didn't tell the army officially that I was trans because back then they didn't recruit trans people. And I'm saying back then, it's not 100 years ago, it was 12 years ago. They didn't recruit trans people. They would just give them an exemption for medical reasons. So I didn't tell them officially that I was trans. And for example, by the way, it was like taboo back then. They didn't know how to deal with trans people, like where would they sleep or where would they shower and things like that. So for example, in training, all the girls would shower in the same, whatever locker room or whatever, the same showers, and you could see everyone naked. And I wasn't capable of showering next to other girls because it just felt very unnatural to me. I mean, it bothered me that they would see me naked in a body that I felt very uncomfortable in. So instead of showering in the evening at shower time, during the day when we went to the cafeteria to eat, I would walk with them all the way. It was like 15, 20-minute walk. And then I would start my clock, 60 seconds, sprint all the way back to my unit, take off my uniform, shower quickly, put the uniform back on and sprint all the way back to the cafeteria. So yeah, that's what I would do. Instead of eating, I lost a few pounds and kind of was showering on my own because I wasn't capable of them seeing me in a body that I felt uncomfortable in. I was the only one in my unit who would pray. I would wake up every morning at like 4:45 a.m. I would go to the synagogue on the base. And in the synagogue, there wasn't like a men's section and women's section. There was only like a huge men's section and a small divider where female soldiers could stand and pray. And there was no one there at that time, but I thought, just in case someone would walk in, I better stand where the female soldiers should stand. So I was standing there and I was praying. And for those of you who don't know, like usually when you pray to God, you're having a dialogue with God, so you're not allowed to talk to anyone around you. There was no one there, but I just want you to understand that. So I was praying there. And then all of a sudden, I felt something on my head. I look left and I see the soldier putting a yarmulke on my head. So I look at this soldier and I take off the yarmulke and I'm just shaking my head like, no, like, because to me, I was thinking that I don't want to confuse him. I'm a female soldier. I don't need to put on a yarmulke. So I took it off and said no. And then the soldier again puts it back on my head and I take it off and he looks at me and he says, dude, what are you doing in the synagogue? You're supposed to be wearing a yarmulke. You're praying to God. What's going on? He probably thought that I was a guy. So I thought, okay, I can't explain to him verbally that I'm a female soldier and I don't need to wear this yarmulke. So, okay, I'll just kind of like show him. So I looked at him and I went like this to him. And this guy, as if a light bulb went up in his mind and he said to me, okay, I understand you're praying from your heart. And I thought, that there's a bigger idiot than me on this base. And I basically just sent him on his way. And when I told the girls the story, the girls in my unit, they were all kind of like, laughing because it was confusing. I mean, honestly, I was confusing and this was back then. And sometimes people will be like on the street, they would make fun of me also when I was wearing a skirt in high school. What are you, a boy, you a girl? It was like, imagine someone making fun of you in high school, but like on the street all the time. It was like very annoying. So I know it was confusing, but I always say that usually when we're not sure who is standing in front of us, maybe it's better to ask, be more respectful and tactful because sometimes, again, we don't know who's standing in front of us. So anyway, I finished my training and I went into my actual job in my unit. I was a sergeant of operations. I don't know what that sounds like to you, but it just basically means making sure that no one should touch the fence or something like that. Nothing too special, but no, it wasn't. It was a support combat position. So anyway, a new new place, new people. I always made sure that I would shower alone. When I would go to the restroom, I would make sure that all the girls left all the cubicles, and only then I would go into the restroom. Hebrew, is a language that differentiates between male and female pronouns and amongst other things. So no one realized, but for about 2 years, I would speak in a neutral way, in a neutral language. Do you guys know a bit of Hebrew? Or okay, so let's test you now. So how would you say I want? If you're saying this in male pronouns, how do you say I want? And in female pronouns? Okay, what other word could you say that both can say? Without changing the times or without speaking in plural? Close, yeah, you could say that too. So there's a word and it's bali. Bali both can say. You want ani rotze lishtot, you can say bali lishtot. So no one realized, but for about 2 years I would speak in a neutral way. Like no one actually realized, but I guess they were I was confused, like why they were trying to pick up, on how I'm speaking. But anyway, it just made me feel okay with myself. So towards the end of my service, I decided that I was going to do this transition, that I was going to do top surgery and take testosterone. And then I, realized that I'd have to go through this whole bureaucratic procedure. I'd have to go to a doctors, like a psychologist, a psychiatrist, an endocrinologist, a surgeon, and so on and so on. And then I decided to make a list why I should go through this transition and why I shouldn't. And let's start with why I shouldn't go through this transition. And let's just kind of put it on the table. Orthodox Judaism doesn't really go hand in hand with that. There's no actual halacha, I think even until this day. I knew that I wouldn't be able to go to the same synagogue that I like to go to. My family, how would they react to this? Maybe they won't accept it. My friends, maybe they wouldn't want to talk to me anymore. It's, top surgery is painful. It's expensive. You're left with scars for the rest of your life. And I knew that I would lose my biggest love of singing. I like to sing. And I knew that the moment I take testosterone, my voice will probably drop and change. And I wouldn't be able to sing anymore. It's not that I sang like Whitney Houston or something like that, but I could sing a bit. And I like to do that. But why should I do this transition? And it might sound like a cliche, but by the end of the day, my inner truth, my inner needs won. Okay, it might sound, I don't know what it sounds like to you, but I wanted to see on the outside what I felt on the inside. So I didn't care about whether it's, the Orthodox Judaism, my family, my friends, surgery, painful, expensive, singing, add another million reasons to why not to do this. But I knew that I wanted to do this and be whole with myself. So when I finished the army, I decided that I was going to save every penny for my top surgery. And while I was doing that, I went to get a quote from a surgeon. And when I sat there, the surgeon explained to me how everything works. He said, we cut from here, we cut from there, we sew this up, we sew that up. And then he told me a story that sounded a bit weird. He said that there was someone just like me that wanted to have the same operation, but something felt a bit off to the surgeon about this. So he decided not to operate on this person. As a result, this person went to a different surgeon, had the operation, and 2 months later, regretted everything. So I'm hearing this story and I'm like, okay, wait. Like, I know what I am, I know what I feel like, but what if there's even 1% that I'll regret this? I mean, it's not an irreversible surgery. You can do other things. I don't put silicone, whatever, later on, but it's not irreversible. And it's not something you just do just like that. So I was very, very confused. And if that wasn't enough, my family said, what about us? What about the way we feel? Like, you rushing into this, maybe slow down. And, again, it made me even more confused. And I had a good friend at the time that told me, listen, you know who you are, you know what you want. Just ignore the noise in the background and listen to your heart. And that's what I decided to do. So April 2012, I went and had the surgery. My mom even came with me to the operation. And after the operation, I was in the recovery room. I awoke and I remember that I regretted everything. I'm just joking. I was in an amazing high. I gave you guys a heart attack. I was an amazing high, probably because of all the drugs and morphine they gave me, but honestly, I didn't regret anything, not then and not till this day. I know a lot of trans people too, and I don't know, maybe there's one person that I know that has, I don't know, mixed feelings about everything, but I don't know anyone personally who regretted surgery or transitioning. So 2 weeks after surgery, I began to take testosterone, and I'll tell you that right from the very first shot, I felt that that gray cloud that was above my head from the moment that I was born kind of shifted away and moved away from me. And I felt that my life was kind of taking off. And with testosterone, you have all kinds of side effects, for better and for worse. For example, facial features that begin to change, hair that grows on my face, on my body, and where not. Your muscle mass, starts to grow. The fat in the body kind of shifts and move around. What do you call the fat on the sides? Love handles, right? And what do you call the fat here? Disgusting. What's the beer belly, right? In California, they call it muffin top or something like that, right? So muffin top or whatever, beer belly. So basically the love handles like move over here to the disgusting. And so I realized that I was going through all these kind of changes. I became more irritable, sweated more, felt more hungry. I don't know what that sounds like to you, but basically it's kind of going through puberty. All right. I know people that's what, but because I don't want to necessarily say that, maybe people feel that way and they don't feel that they're men, but I'll just say it's like it's going through puberty at 22. I was 22 when I did this. This was like 9 years ago, I think, or almost, 11 years ago, sorry, bad at math. Anyway, so I realized that I was going through all these changes and suddenly people were reacting to me differently, my surroundings and things like that. I realized that I was like getting used to this. 2 months after my top surgery, by the way, top surgery is the recovery is painful because you walk around bent for like 4 months, you have stitches across your chest. And I thought that 2 months after surgery, I can finally go to the beach without a shirt. But then I started to worry that maybe people would spot me on the beach, look at me and be like, oh, what is that? Or is that a transgender person? Or, like, that's what was going through my mind. But no one paid attention to the extent that I had a very good friend after surgery came up to me and said, what's up, Mikey? And I bent over in pain. I didn't want to show him because I want to show him that I'm a man, right? Like, but in Israel, it's like there's a lot of what's up, I love you. Like that's why my cheeks are red. So it's like always, these new things that I realized that I have to get used to. About 6 or 7 years ago, I began my BA in communications and management. And when I arrived at college, no one knew me from before. I looked more or less like I look right now. And to me, I didn't want them to know anything about my past. All they needed to know is that my name is Michael Alroy, and that's it. And right from the very first day, I met this guy. His name was Daniel. We became best of friends. He would come over to my house a lot, to my apartment. We'd go out to bars, to parties, all the, kind of things like that. And he had this weird thing where he would try to always open the door when I went to the restroom. Usually, I don't know if you're in the States, but in Israel, when you go to a public restroom, you don't even close the door. So it was weird to him that I was closing the door and locking the door. He was thinking, oh, this guy's weird. So I was trying to kind of open the door. And he always said that he came from a very LGBTQ phobic family. And he always said that his mom would make these comments, or him himself, but he had no idea what he had like right under his nose, right? And about 8 months studying in college, it became very difficult for me to keep the secret, not only from him, but from everyone, because people would ask me, where did you study in high school? And I couldn't say, oh, I studied in an all-girls religious school, right? What would that sound like? It sounded a bit weird. And I'm just explaining to you, I was 24 back then, and it's not a secret, right? This is who I am. Nobody has to know what I have between my legs and things like that, but still I have a past, and it was very difficult for me to cut 24 years of my life off and just, not speak about it. So one day I heard one of my professors say, at this point, by the way, I wanted to come out, right? Like I wanted to tell everyone that I'm trans, and I thought, how should I do this? So one day I heard one of my professors say how he likes to film students' reactions while he's showing them something on the screen. So I thought, what if I would just put my transition on the screen, like show pictures and videos from early childhood till, because I documented my transition. So just put that on the screen and just show it to them like that. And that's what I decided to do. So we got 150 students that were studying with me in the same classes. We put them all in one classroom. And I thought, how should I tell my best friend Daniel? Should I tell him one-on-one? Should I tell him with everyone? Because I was afraid of his reaction. I was really afraid of what he might think, say, do, I don't know. I thought that he would laugh at me or would be angry with me. In the end, I just decided that I would show him with everyone. As a matter of fact, when I was doing this thing, he wasn't even supposed to come to college that same day. He said, I'm not feeling well, I want to stay. Like, that's what he was saying. And I told him, listen, come to it, I'll help you with whatever, like he had no one, it was a surprise, right? No one knew that this is something that was gonna happen. So anyway, the 150 students in the same classroom, they have no idea what's about to happen. I'm sitting with them in the audience. This is what I'm about to show you guys in a second. And basically this was on the news because one of the TV news channels were documenting this. So what you're gonna see is just a piece from the news with subtitles in English about me coming out in front of my students at college and my best friend Daniel's reaction. I think you guys are gonna have to like turn around to watch that. Yes, I'll tell you all about that right after this. And in the meantime, you guys can also think about questions you have because I'd love for you guys to ask questions after the talk and I'd love to answer them. So one sec. Okay, so thanks. So yeah, I hope the subtitles were okay. I know it was pretty soft. But yeah, so basically what you saw was me coming out in front of my friends at college, but it literally meant coming out in front of almost, I think, the whole state, because this was on the news to primetime TV 2 nights after that. You asked how do I get the news channel to document this. So because I was studying communications, and part of it is like dealing with news and stuff, my professor, the one that I told you about, who said he likes to film the students' reactions, they have a lot of connections to the media channels and things, and they thought it would be a good idea to change it into something even more impactful and get the news to document this whole thing. So everything you saw, it's like all raw and live. Like my friend Daniel walked in right in the middle of this video. The video was like, the transition video was like 2 minutes. He walked right in the middle of it. And they caught his reaction. Like I gave them a picture of him before. I told them like, catch him on camera if he's there. And that was amazing because the whole thing, I don't know if you guys want to see it, it's in Hebrew. It's like 12 minutes long and kind of, tells more about my story and everything. But yeah, that's what it meant. And you saw at the end, he came to me and I thought he might laugh at me or shout at me. In the end, he was crying. But don't be mistaken, because it was awkward between both of us for about a few weeks. He told me, you lied to me. I said, I never lied to you. I'm exactly the same person. I just was afraid to tell you because I was afraid of your reaction. And by the way, till this day, we're still best of friends. And yeah, I mean, I think that this is something that basically had from what I heard, like had a large impact on people that were watching this, or their parents or themselves, because people reached out to me on social media and said, my parents accept me now, and things like that. Sorry. So by the way, after 6 months after that, I was also on the Big Brother show in Israel. I don't know if you know the Big Brother show, but anyway, there's in Israel, that's like the #1 reality show where they get 16 people locked in the same house and you film 24/7. But I went to the show because I wanted to, create more awareness. And I knew that this way I could reach a larger audience that usually don't interact with our community. So in terms of that, it did a lot of good, but personally, it was traumatizing. Don't go to reality shows. You won't win anyway. It was a terrible experience, but yeah, and that's how I kind of find myself doing what I do today. I know I can't wrap up, my entire life in 1 hour, you know what I'm saying? But those are like the highlights that I think are important to hear. And I also want to leave a few, minutes for questions. I will say that, by the end of the day, the way that I see life is that we have 2 options. If something is bothering us, or if we are living in fear, we have 2 options, either to change something about it or to stay exactly in the same lane. And know that with both options, you'll have problems, right? So if we stay in the same lane and not do something about it, just like you saw in my story, when I wanted to shave my head, or when I wanted to move to a secular school, or when I wanted to do other things, but people told me, no, you cannot, you're not allowed. So I was stuck in the same lane that people expected of me to be in. But on the other hand, if you want, you can change something about that, but no, you'll also have problems, just like you saw with me. When I wanted to do the top surgery, when I knew it would be expensive, or take testosterone and it would, change my voice and things like that. But by the end of the day, if with both options, you'll have problems, wouldn't you at least prefer to choose the option that would make you feel happier? And that's what I basically decided to do. I told you about my dad. My dad passed away when I was in the army because of cancer. He never saw me like I am like this today, but he always knew that this was what I was. And he told me once that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter to him or to whoever what I am or how I am. What matters is who I am as a person. And that's something that stuck with me till this day. And I hope that my dad, wherever he is, I hope that he's happy with whatever came out with me. But yeah, so first of all, that is my story. So thank you guys so much for listening and for participating. It really means a lot to me. And if you have any questions, I really want you to know that I'm an open book, so you can feel free to ask me anything you want. If you see trans people in other events on the street, always be respectful and ask if it's okay to ask, because people can be very sensitive, but I'm here to answer anything you guys want to ask. So fire away. Yeah. Okay, so you asked, I'll just repeat the question for those maybe at home. How did I feel after that presentation in college, right? So basically my heart before that was racing. It was like on, 300 miles or something. It was like, I was terrified. I was shaking. I was like prepping myself like for the moment of talking in front of my friends. You saw that at some point I was like very emotional and, but afterwards it was an amazing feeling because I felt that I got something off my chest, and also it created like this whole effect where there were a lot of people that was writing me messages and things like, because this was also in the news. So, it created this amazing effect. It was like a very positive thing that happened. But as I said, afterwards, being on the Big Brother show, that kind of like went downhill. But yeah, it felt amazing. A night before I did this, I heard that there was another trans guy from an Orthodox community that got beaten up or something like that. So I was really afraid that if I expose myself this way, maybe something will happen to me. But knock on wood, I call it hashgacha pratit, like God looking upon me, because thank God, like nothing ever happened to me. Like I could go to a restroom in Israel and people till this day would still recognize me, and I would be worried that maybe someone would want to do something to me, but thank God that's not the case. You had another question? Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of the things that you described as a child.
Yeah.
Not fitting into a girl.
Right.
You want to be able to. Growing up as a woman in general, who's, athletic, I was always tomboy and didn't want to have to wear dresses. There were a lot of things
Right.
that resonated with growing up. So
Right.
what do you, I guess, if there weren't social constructs, would you think that you still would have felt that you were in the wrong body? Or what would be the difference between whatever
Right.
body
So it's a good question. I think it would be the same. I mean, well, what you asked is if there were no social constructs and things like that, if I would still feel the need to change my body. So I think, I don't know to tell you because it all kind of went hand in hand, but I'm pretty sure that, since the age of 3, this is the way I felt. Like I felt this connection to this body, but I also felt that I wanted to be something else. It's not that I just felt like I don't like this body or something like that, and that's it. So I'm pretty sure that it would still be the same thing. I don't think it really would. I don't know, right? But like I assume that it's not just something like a preference. You know what I'm saying? It's like I can't explain it. We don't know how to explain it. But basically, it's something that I probably go through and do anyway, regardless of the social, the social situation, even though that's something that helped in that sense where I could differentiate and see, okay, this is like this. I'm attracted more to wearing these things and being this person. But yeah, it would still, the fact is like years later, when I was 3, okay, I didn't feel like, oh, I don't have something between my legs. Like that wasn't the thought. But I just could kind of sense and feel that I feel different about things. But, people usually ask me like, well, you were only 3 years old. Like, how the hell did you know that you want to be something else? But if you think about it, if you remember yourselves as kids, I assume, I don't know, kids are not dumb, okay? Kids have a sense of self. They know what they feel. Even if there are certain trends when you're a teenager or things like that, you feel yourself, like what you more attracted to in terms of being or whatever you're attracted to, you feel that. That's what I felt like at 3. I don't know how, but that's what I felt. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, it probably would be the same situation. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So regarding the first question, like in terms of the government, right? Like first of all, I changed on my ID, I changed it to male. This was back then after top surgery. They changed that now, I think. But what happened in Israel was they said you have to have some kind of physical change for you to be eligible to change your sex, whatever, what do you call that? Yeah, but it's not the gender. That's a thing. On the passport, it's either male or female. That is your sex. Your gender is man, woman, right? That's what I explained to you in the beginning. You have to remember that because we tend to mix that all the time. Male, man, two different things. But anyway, that's what is on the ID card. So you had to have some kind of physical change. And that's messed up because I have a lot of friends that they don't want to or they don't need to because I don't know, their chest, I don't know, I didn't do bottom surgery, for example. It's very complicated, it's very expensive. Someone would tell me that it's 100%, I would do it, but it's not 100%. I have a lot of friends that did it. It's very, very complicated. But anyway, today I think they changed that. And you don't necessarily have to have like a physical change. You have to go through a committee and you have to go through like doctors and psychiatrists and things to diagnose you or whatever, however you'd like to call it, which makes sense because otherwise anyone would just walk in and say like, hey, I want to change, and it could create certain issues. But because anyway, I did top surgery, so I changed that. In terms of healthcare and all that, I know that in the States you guys have private healthcare. Unfortunately for you, in Israel we have public healthcare. And it really depends, okay? But usually, like, let's say I want to buy testosterone shots, it would cost me like $3 compared to someone that doesn't have a health insurance plan here, would have to pay a couple of $100s for that same shot, which is messed up. But yeah, whatever that sound was agrees with me. So, so anyway, there are a lot of things, like for example, people that want to do bottom surgery or top surgery today, and also in the past few years, they go through this committee and they can even get funding, like 100% funding for that. When I did top surgery, I preferred to go to a private surgeon because back then I was worried how it would come out at a public hospital. The results that I saw were not that good, so I preferred to pay. I think it cost me around like $12,000 or something like that to do top surgery. But yeah, today you can even get your insurance company in Israel to pay for your surgery. For example, the trans women that go to Thailand and do a bunch of operations there, and the insurance company will cover it all. It's not that simple. You have to go through a whole procedure and things, but you can do it. So there's a lot of things that do work out with the current government. God knows, if they'll start changing things. I hope not, but I know that our community, they call us like the strongest minority in Israel, like the LGBTQ community. So I assume that if things get worse, or if they try to legislate things, we'll all be like, oh, it's already happening now, right? The LGBT community is like, protesting and things are happening, unfortunately, but that's the case. But yeah, that's, and your second question? Right. So as I said, like the moment I decided to do this transition, and when I did that list, when I thought, okay, like I won't be able to go to synagogue. If you saw in the beginning, my talk is called in Hebrew, it's Baruch Shasani Kirtzono, usually a prayer, one of the blessings that women usually say. Thank you for making me the way you wanted to make me, the way I am. And I say that because, yeah, I was born in this body, but I always felt that I had a different soul, like from the very first memory. So I'm more of a believer than a religious person. I don't like to describe myself as a religious person. Although I keep Shabbat and I keep kosher, to me, it's more of like being a believer. Like when people ask me, how did you get through things in life? I always say that I felt that God was there with me along my, by my side. So yeah, I have a lot of friends that they have like peos and they wear yarmulkes, and some of them are even like very like Haredi, like very Orthodox, and they blend into those communities without telling anyone that they're trans and stuff. I don't feel the need to. I don't feel the need to put on a yarmulke. Because I feel that my belief is stronger than that. That's the way I see it. And it's an individual thing for everyone. That's what I think. So yeah, I hope it answers your question. Wait, let me just ask on this side. Yeah. Can I still sing? Unfortunately, yeah, I get that asked often. Unfortunately, not really. I maybe had to go to a vocal therapist or whatever to figure that out, but I never actually invested in that, kind of just accepted that that's the situation. I can sing at home with my guitar or whatever, but it's not singing. It's like, yeah. Honestly, yeah, I never looked into that and even never said something about that. But I heard that in the Gemara or something, there are like a bunch of genders or things. I don't know, but honestly don't know. Like I never went into that depth. Probably, yeah, probably. I guess. I mean, yeah, I never actually went into in high school. They taught us like Mishnah, right? Like that's usually goes like study Mishnah, not Gemara. But yeah, like I never. But honestly, it didn't like matter to me, you know. Like with all respect to religion and everything else, like this. By the end of the day, you know, the Torah says derech eretz kadma la Torah. Like you first like be a good person or whatever, like respect someone before you start like going in depth into the Torah. And that's the way I see it, like keeping it simple. How do you say, like love your neighbor like you love yourself? So that's how I see it. And I don't go into all the like, I know that a lot of people do, like a lot of trans people, they do, oh, the Torah says this, Torah says, but like by the end of the day, as I told you guys, I try to commit suicide at some point. If it's that or living the way I live, I assume the Torah would say, okay, just like do your thing. And that's the way I see it. So I don't like start arguing with people, but it says this is who I am. Like you want, accept. If you don't, then bye. Like that's my attitude. Not in I don't say that literally, but I show the confidence that this is who I am. And if you want, it's okay. Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
I want to comment on, it didn't occur to me because I came this way, I'm fine this way, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And in response to what you shared, they have two daughters, one biological, one adopted, one straight, that's fine, living with a man, but one has been a lesbian for my adopted daughter for her whole life. And I remember when she was very little, we were like passing clothes on within the mother's group and all of that. And she's like, Mom, I don't wear pants that go in and out. But she's female, she identifies as a woman, she has a girlfriend. And the rest of my life, I run a special education private practice. I've got about 100 kids on my casebook. A dozen are trans kids. And I've got 2-year-olds. And the boys, at least in my experience, the biological boys seem to be older than the biological girls. Didn't apply in her case. These kids who come to my world. And we've got 2-year-olds asking for fairy wings because they just know they're just in the wrong. And there's a wonderful clinic here run through Children's Hospital. There's a big overlap in research here. But with autism spectrum disorders and transgender professionals. Dr. John Strang at Children's runs the only clinic across the world for trans kids who also have autism spectrum disorder. 99% have thought about it. So, and his is the only clinic in the world, and so he's never here anymore, you know, because he's always around. So, I just want to thank you. Yeah, I want to thank you for your bravery, and I'll do my part in the special ed part of the world. I can't do your part because it doesn't apply to me, but I think they just know it's wrong.
Right.
And when you're 2, you can't make it up.
Right. Just before I answer your questions, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And it's true what you said. There's been research and there's a correlation between the autism spectrum and the trans spectrum too. And I know a lot of trans people, that are on the autism spectrum, and also that are not, but also what you mentioned about the suicide rate in general. The suicide rate is like on 40% in general, you know. And I myself, for the past 4 years, I've been moderating a group of parents that's called Trans Parenting in Tel Aviv at the LGBTQ Center. And this group is a group of parents that have trans kids. And every kid is individual, right? Like it's an individual case, but the similarities, like to the stories of like I had to take my kid to a psychiatric hospital. My kid tried to commit suicide. My kid has depression. My kid is on the autism. There's a lot of things that just it doesn't surprise me anymore. Like it's the same thing. And sometimes some parents say, listen, we on our kids' side, we give them everything, we like accept them, but why are they still depressed? Like that's what one of the mothers asked me. But I'll tell you that sometimes, okay, just like me, when I told you that I was in a psychiatric hospital, it's not 100% because I'm trans. I'm suffering from depression. It happens. It goes side by side. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the trans thing. Okay. And we feel that. So that's something that happens. And we have to remember that. And another thing I tell the parents is that we are not our parents. Okay. Even though we have the genes of our parents or whatever, usually parents automatically think that, you know, they expect something from their kids. They want something. And in the end, some of them, the kids disappoint them because they don't turn out to match their expectations. And that's something that we always have to remember, that our parents are not us, we are not our parents in general. And some of them go through mourning phases, like I lost my daughter, I lost my son, but at the end of the day, the group that I've been moderating gives them a way to kind of just go through this process, go through this mourning, and then, you know, become more whole with their, you know, with everything that's going on. So thank you for sharing that. You had a question, right?
I was just wondering about how things are in Israel for trans folks in terms of acceptance of our government, noticing things kind of going in a negative direction. Are seeing violence harder for folks that are transitioned from male to female, female to male in terms of that acceptance?
Right. So in general, right now in Israel, in terms of everything that's going on with the government, I don't know how much you guys follow the situation right now, but it's from what I heard. I haven't been in Israel for the past 3 months because I've been touring the States and been elsewhere, but I follow all the time, and it's been worse basically in the past few months or the past year, because there's a lot of homophobia, transphobia. I heard like neighbors like in Tel Aviv, like throwing stones at some guy's apartment for being gay. All these like weird little stories, or trans women who got acid porn on, things like terrible stuff. These things can happen in general, but it's like rising. You feel that the hate from the certain parties in the government, or the way they speak about it, is terrible, and it goes down to the people, and that's the way they feel that they should act, which is like nuts. But those are things that are happening, unfortunately. Of course, you have like in Tel Aviv, you have like a bubble where things can be fine. Things can also not be fine. You have a lot of, in South Tel Aviv, you have a lot of like escorts, like trans people that are escorts, unfortunately, but you have all those kind of unfortunate situations. But it really depends where you live, where you go. For me, for example, what they call is like I pass. Like if I walk in the street, no one will recognize that I'm trans, which again, this is just the way that I like to dress. It's not that I'm trying to blend in or something like that. This is the way that I like to be. And the trans people that, you know, you could recognize maybe, I don't know, just by looking at someone. And sometimes it's unfortunate. Sometimes they'll get calling out, or people would say things to them. Just like when I was in high school, when I was wearing a dress and a short hat, it's the same experience, by the way, because I was experiencing that, the people laughing on the street, or worried that someone would do or say something to me. So yeah, it's just now people can come out, and it's, yeah, unfortunately not always accepted, but everywhere, but we exist. They say in the Gen Z generation, that every 1 in 4 is a trans person, but it's not that suddenly they became trans or they ate oatmeal and they became, you know, it's not the case. We always existed. And there's a lot of things going on with gender and, you know, those gender roles and things like that, that those misconceptions that we're trying to break. And if someone just wants to live their life that they want to live their life, then what is your business? So people say, but my kids go to school with that kid and that kid will influence my kid. As I said, kids are not dumb. Even if it's a trend, even something will happen to your kid and he will start dressing in pink or something, by the end of the day, he'll grow out of it if it's not him or her. Okay, so just, I always say that because people are like, you know, I don't want to take too much of your time. You can still ask questions. I'm here with you guys. I just want to know if everyone's cool with that, or if someone has to go, or before you go, I'd like, if that's fine, I'd like to take a photo with you guys. That's cool.
Oh, that would be great.
So maybe let's do this. Let's maybe do like 2 more questions. We'll take a photo and then I'm still here. If anyone wants to ask anything, I'm here. Okay? Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So who's?
No, I was just saying, that's good.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Would you please say again, gender versus sex?
Right.
I missed it and
Okay.
I want to walk out of here with an aha. And
Okay.
I'm very close to it, but I can't, if I can't repeat it to somebody else, then I'm not fully aha.
Okay, cool. So gender identity, okay. For example, I don't know, what do you feel that you are?
Cis female,
Okay.
right?
I guess.
Well, if you get.
How's he supposed to know?
You're still be a
Yeah, you're supposed to know
lesbian,
that
but I'm
one
a
way or the
cis
other.
female, right?
Okay, exactly, good. So that's your gender identity, all right? Now, gender can be fluid. Again, it depends who you are. It can be fluid, but I don't want to get into that depth because I just want to make it clear for you. But gender, okay, between there's man, woman, there's it's more fluid, but that's gender. What am I? What do I feel that I am? Sexual orientation, to whom am I attracted to? Okay, so just I feel that I am a man. Am I attracted to women? Am I attracted to men? Am I attracted to both? Am I attracted to none? That's attraction. But what am I? Just because I feel that I am a guy doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, wait, okay, you want to be a guy, then you probably want to be with women. No, doesn't necessarily mean that. Does that make more
So
sense?
the gender is I'm cis female.
Exactly. And your sexual orientation is?
Well,
That took a while to
Yeah.
figure out.
What's going on there?
I'm very attracted to you.
What?
I'm very physically attracted to you.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I want to have sex with you, not necessarily, but there's something about you that I want to get to know you more and I would love a hug from you. So for me, I am attracted to you.
Right, so I'll just say something like this. I also believe in just saying like, all these like terms, right? Lesbian, gay, all that.
Right.
Because our brains think in patterns, like we think in patterns and usually, and that's unfortunate, if we look around in the room, we dress more or less the same way in the Western culture, right? We know with clothing, whatever, usually it's like black, white, yes or no kind of that game, right? Or like we wear Nike, Adidas, or like, we wear casual clothes. But if I'll take you now to Papua New Guinea or Scotland or wherever else that have traditional skirts, it would seem normal over there. But if you bring someone from there over here and dress the way they dress with a few beads between their legs, we'd be like, what the hell is that? But that doesn't mean that it's not normal. I'm saying this because in the sense that we always like put things into boxes because our brains, it would create a dissonance if we suddenly see someone wearing bright pink or something, you know what I mean? So it like catches our eye and we think, oh, what is that? Instinctively, basically, that's what I'm saying. And why am I saying that? Because I also believe in we are attracted, it's just attraction. Why do we have to give it labels and names? But in our Western culture study, just to put things into perspective, just to like know that we can communicate in a certain way, that's why this is done. And that's why I asked you, what is your sexual orientation? Like you said, you'd like to give me a hug. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have a sexual attraction to me, but I'm specifically talking about sexual attraction. It could be also emotional attraction. But exactly, emotional, sexual attraction, that is attraction. But what do you feel that you are is something else. That's gender. So does it make more sense now? That's
helpful.
attraction and what you are.
I can say that with some conviction.
Okay.
I don't know whether this will help, and he's doing a much better job than I probably will, but when people are pregnant or adopting and they want to have gender reveal parties, I correct them 100% of the time. It is not gender reveal at all. It is sex reveal, because sex is biological and gender is then constructed for the whole rest of your life.
Right. If you're asking the difference between of that, okay, because you have sex, your biological sex, male, female, that's biological, physically. And then you have your gender, are you man, woman, that's more fluid, that's your gender, what you feel that you are. And whom are you attracted to? Okay, that's something else, that's your attraction to someone else. So yeah, it's a bit confusing in the beginning, it takes time to like understand that, but you're 100% right. Like people don't understand that. And on TV, I see that mixing that up all the time, the male and the man, but there's a difference. And again, the reason there's a difference is because, again, I was born female. There's nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. But I feel something else, that I am something else. That's the gender. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll have time for one more question.
Question about the IDF. So
Right.
did you still remain part of the reserves, or are you still part of the army? And do they recognize you as a trans man?
So, good question. So I was, after that thing on before I came out, when I had to do reserve service, I called my commando, whoever that was. I said, listen, it was very embarrassing for me to explain this back then. And I wanted them to give me an exemption because I didn't know how they would and I have to shower with guys. How could I do that? It's like weird. But anyway, they insisted on me coming to the army, and they said we'll find solutions for you. Don't worry about that. So anyway, I came to whatever the reserve service and stuff, and that was fine. And I don't think I didn't even stay there for the night. I just went back and said that was fine. But then after a few years, my commander changed, and I didn't let anyone know.
Yeah.
And then I went once, and this is on the first piece of the news. If you want to watch it, I talk about it over there, because I went once to one of the reserved days that we had to go to. It wasn't there, it was a week or 2 weeks. And my direct commander didn't know that I was trans, or anyone around me didn't know that I was trans. And I was sleeping in the room with guys, and on the one and the second, nice, cool experience. But then I didn't shower the entire time that I was there, because this was a week in the desert, and they had showers and stuff, but I was so scared that someone would ask me, why are you showering in a bathing suit, or, I was terrified, so I didn't shower for the whole week. And now that I think about it, it's disgusting. Yeah, but that's what happened. And then afterwards, the thing was on the news, and someone called me up from the army and said, this was a disappointing moment, because this is when someone told me, listen, I'm just checking in, and if you want to get an exemption, we can give you an exemption. I said, no, I want to keep on going. I want to keep on serving my reserve. I said, no, we can give you if you want. I said, no, I don't want. And after a few months, I just got this automatic exemption that they give to a bunch of people that, I don't know, just try to, I guess it was based on that. And I was angry about that. And then when I called someone about that, so they said, listen, if you want, you could still volunteer. And I said, F that. You don't want me, you don't need me. It's better for me, because then if I'm going somewhere, I don't have to take that into account. It's something they'll call me up for this service. So yeah, it's a good question. I don't usually address that stuff. But today, by the way, they do recruit trans people, and they do find solutions for them, whether it's showers or where to sleep and things like that. Cool, if it's fine with you guys, if we can, before everyone runs away, if we can maybe just stand by the screen. I just have the background of my talk, we can just maybe take a photo over there. Is that okay? Please don't run away.
Keep trying to talk.
By the way,